We are back with another episode of Cantina Chronicles. This week we are covering Rise of the Red Saber, written by Delilah S. Dawson. What an incredible book. Inquisitor, Rise of the Red Saber, I should say.
It's a long title.
Incredible title. Compelling book. Like, it was just like a wild ride the entire time I was reading. But I can't wait to review it with you guys. Like, this has been exciting to see this book out there for a while. And we haven't got a chance to read it, in the past few months, but then we just now, we're like, let's jump on this, and super excited to get into it with you guys.
Yeah, man, definitely. I think I'd mentioned several weeks leading up to this book. I've had so much fun reading this. Meg Dowell from Star Wars Book Reviews and Dark Side of Force, he's been on here. She said this was like her top 3 book. It like just sort of slid right in.
Yeah.
And I think it displaced another Delilah S. Dawson book, the Phasma. But so I was like, piqued curiosity, and I just like was just in the mood for a Star Wars book, man, and I couldn't put it down. I was just like, it was one of those reads where I'd like savor every chapter I'd read like before bed and like milked it out for a while, and I had a really, really fun time reading this. It's the story I've been waiting for a very long time, as far as like dark side point of view.
It's very cool.
Yeah, it's cool, and like a fall.
Yeah. Yeah, and a fall that makes sense, right? Like you could follow the logic of it and doesn't feel rushed. And I will admit that sometimes when we're reading books for the podcast, I have like a timeline set. Like, all right, we're gonna record in like 7 days. I got to read X percentage every day, right, to get there. And I still do that even with this because that's who I am. But like sometimes it feels like, and I'm always enjoying these books from like a Star Wars perspective. But I read a lot, and this is one of those books where I was actually just enjoying it from a book perspective. Yeah. Does that make sense? Like I just, whether or not it was a Star Wars book, it was a really good read. You don't need to do any of those like caveats to it. Like Delilah S. Dawson does this amazing job of just character studies and following a character and understanding character motivations. And I love how she can follow characters who are dark, right?
Yeah.
Her Phasma book's amazing. And we watch that person.
Yeah, this is from the point of view of someone literally cracking people's necks and going down the dark path. Like I just have to say, Scat is just one of the coolest characters that we've got a privilege to be introduced to, especially in the sort of like Inquisitor era, like really cool Inquisitor.
Yeah, I was like, how does one become an Inquisitor? But it's like the organically, not tortured into it, just kind of walks right into it.
Yeah, I mean, of all the characters, right? I was just like, I freely choose this.
Yeah.
Like when I even under duress, really. Yeah. I mean, there was kind of duress, but not really. And the other thing that I just want to say, and we're gonna skip to the end for a second. That I just have to kind of spoil. I mean, we're gonna spoil everything.
We should talk about the end. It's the most. I mean, it's where this book came from. Is the ending.
But I'm gonna just say
it's spoilers for Inquisitor, Rise of the Red Blade. Like lots of spoilers here.
Yeah. If you haven't read it and you want to. I also think even after our discussion, you should still read it.
Yeah,
whether it's
kind of
there's such a journey.
It's kind of impossible to spoil. I mean, the whole point was it was really based off a character that was in 3 issues of Darth Vader, of Charles Soule's Darth Vader run in 2017.
Yeah,
and you see clearly the last acts of our hero in those.
That's a good point.
And that is the last chapter of the book is Delilah's version written out. Behind the eyes of the narrator through those
from Izcat's perspective, right?
Her perspective through those whole things.
And I remember, I think Ben, you had pointed out she was in those Vader issues, and I didn't read those before reading the book, so I didn't remember the ending. But I'll say this, just kind of vague. We'll talk about it, is that when you read this and you make a compelling character that you're rooting for, go dark. I am often sometimes a little bit like, are we gonna get like a last minute redemption? Are we gonna get this like, I was wrong, and whatever? And I really appreciated that we really didn't in this
No.
book. Still a sympathetic character, but it was not this redemption. It was someone's fall and continued
Oh
fall
yeah,
all the way down.
Yeah,
free fall into the.
but
dark
she
side.
wasn't like a mustache twirling villain either.
Mm-mm,
Like she
mm-mm.
just like didn't
Nope.
feel like she got enough love when she was young and was like mistreated and outcast and just like didn't get any of the nurturing she needed. Had a very cold like master. It was like, I mean, if you wanted to like get super technical, you could sort of blame the downfall on the fact that she wasn't chosen by a master. It was like master felt like they owed
she
it
was-
to this Padawan because of her mother, and so
Yeah.
Big
Where have
reveal
we
that she was
seen
handed
that?
off as a
Oh,
baby
yeah.
to her master.
yeah,
Where
This
where
is-
have we seen that story before, where a master doesn't choose his apprentice and it doesn't go very well for either
Drawing
of
a
them?
blank.
Yeah, it doesn't sound familiar, right? But I think that's an important point, right? Like there is something in the Jedi about the importance of a master finding a connection, dare I say, an attachment, with a Padawan, right? And that being important.
yeah.
Yeah. Not only does she feel like she missed out on that nurturing with her mother and her people, but also the PTSD from the Clone Wars and just like how beautiful that's described from Iskat's point of view and sort of how she's having these conversations with the Jedi and the council's acting like this war isn't messy. And I was like, just loved that. And like, we were like, after she kills Geonosian guards, she gets on a transport and like, I think Cleefan or someone tells her like just to calm down and it's okay. And there's just like this immediate Zen space. And I was like, this
Weird.
is weird for this is going to be traumatic.
Yep.
Yeah.
People are like, it's such a realistic turn
Yeah.
for the character that I was like, they're just kind of like dull their senses during war. And then she never had a real mother figure. It's
kind of
really
sick.
For-
Yeah,
a tough life.
Yeah. For a child soldier, right? She was a
And the
teenager.
column,
Yeah.
the column, like this traumatized, basically. She brings down a column on a student's back.
yeah. Whoopsie daisy.
Mhm.
I know it's so
character.
it's
We-
so
Dark
real to
character.
have this like it's wild to have this stuff spelled out for you,
Tragic.
and especially the war stuff. You're like, oh yeah, these are pacifists, and they're like just being told to murder people, like just like go into war and kill their
Yep.
soldiers. And it was just that part was written so well, and it is such
So
a
well.
mind bender.
Yeah, and for a person who struggled with many aspects of the Force, for the first time to feel accomplished at something, and that something is killing others,
Yeah.
right? And it's almost like instilled, like it's a weird thing where it's like this was as a sociologist and a criminologist, we often have the debate of nature versus nurture, right? That is a very common debate that we have in our field. And there's a little bit in this book, and I thought it was dealt very well of like, is this just in her? Is this innate, or was it something about her thing? And I always tend to focus more on nurture rather than nature, but this idea of just like the system is taught that you should excel at something. You don't need to be great at everything, but the Jedi usually say there's one thing that seems to be suggested, at least in New Canon. Like there's one thing that you're really, really going to be good at, one aspect of the Force. And she hadn't found that. And I think the second she found herself really good at saber battling and killing people, she really latched onto that. And I was watching that. It's like, you can see like, yeah, she's in a system that taught her to find the thing she's really good at, take pride in it, and develop that skill.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's cool that you get to see that sort of internal thought process of, I'm really good at these things. I'm really good in combat. And then the council's trying to basically keep her at the temple, at teaching younglings.
Babysitter.
Like she's basically being denied those kind of frontline missions. And it's like, it's interesting to see like how she's just looking for a way to keep performing out in the field or doing something where she's making a difference with her lightsaber. And it's like, and it's interesting when she gets to be untapped with the Inquisitorious and sort of like unleash. And it's, it's just captivating stuff, but it's also like a real descent into the dark side at that point. And it's just a fantastic book.
The more we're talking about this, more I'm just impressed with. I feel like Delilah, I just want to call it, is also great follow on Instagram, or by the way,
yeah, definitely.
we follow her. She's really a really good, fun follow. She met up with Chuck Wendig just last month. They were on a book tour together.
Oh, cool. Yes, I saw
for
that.
other books. Yeah.
Very cool.
And so, but I was gonna say that she has this ability to do the tone poem we always make a joke that it rhymes like poetry, right? Because of the old Lucas thing. But she's able to do that. Like, I really am not. I joke about, hey, there's this rhyming of Anakin being forced upon Obi-Wan, right? In a dying wish, and I think that's the first step down this whole thing of what went wrong, right? And then the other thing is, like, she's very much like Ahsoka, if Ahsoka had a dark path, right? Like, very similar age, very good at killing people, very accomplished, but something about Ahsoka turned away from the violence, right? Or turned away from it when she steered into it. Is Cat. Like, it's just really interesting, this idea of, like, you know.
Well, yeah, that's
there, but for the grace of the Force.
That Order 66 sort of like that specific moment with you guys, because I feel like that was pretty unique and kind of new territory. I don't know if we've been privy to sort of like how Inquisitors are chosen, or sort of like who interacts with them first, who sends out the call. But like that scene was really interesting. I thought that would just super cinematic moment almost when that hologram message comes in.
Yeah,
I didn't really. It was hard to believe that she would betray her friend so easily, but like at that point she already felt like everyone's been cold to her after murdering that. Or I guess harming that student.
Well,
I'd be like, what friends, right? Like, she's didn't have them, right?
Everyone was against her against the world at that point. I think the most interesting part of this book for me is sort of, we have to trust our narrator, and I don't know if I do. It's like all we get is her point of view.
Yep.
And I know, Grant, we've been talking offline a lot about, just like we wanted to see someone go to bat for the Jedi Order. Like, that was, yes, it had to fall, but it's not like it wasn't all L's, and the Jedi are actually, it is a sound dark.
Actually, I have lots of questions about that, and I think I was wondering what Adam was thinking when the council was sort of knighting all these young students, sort of like their approach, because I was honestly like, Iscat definitely maybe shouldn't be a knight yet, and then a bunch of these students that are with, I was like, how are these students being promoted to knight when they have so much to learn, and then Anakin just being, it's like it felt like everyone was basically being pulled into the war, and I was just like, that was their worst decision. I feel like they basically didn't let the teaching take place for a lot of Jedi.
Yeah, I mean, you could go a step further than that too. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, and I think Delilah did a great job of, like, you really framing it through Iscat's eyes of what she's saying, and you're right there on board with her for the whole journey, pretty much. I mean, I was, even through the dark side, you can sort of like see what she's going through. But it's like, how much of that do we trust Iscat, and how much do you actually think was the fault of the Jedi and what's going on? And I think that's a good example, right? Like, it's pretty barbarous that they're sending teenagers out there to lead warriors into battle based on, I don't know what, like very little warrior training.
No, just an assumption. So it's so hard, right? Because I'm with both of you. Like I joke around. I mean, I think, how can I say this? I think that is the point. I think the point of the prequels is that the Jedi were duped, right? I think the Jedi were led to a place, and that doesn't mean they're bad at what they're doing. As a person who has twice in his life been put in a position in terms of a career because of outside forces where I was not qualified, nor did it speak to my skill level, forced into, I made some really bad decisions. I mean, eventually it all worked out and everyone's fine. Didn't create child soldiers or anything, but I could relate. This idea of, like, sometimes external forces put things, and the Jedi just weren't. That's not who they were. And that's what Sidious knew. Yeah. Right? Sidious knew that the Jedi are not meant to be soldiers, or this iteration of this. And, like, I mean, not to bring it all the way back to the to the High Republic, but I'm going to. I'm really wondering, and we'll get to this when we start reading the High Republic, is what we've talked about is there's a Sith behind what's going on in the High Republic. Right. And I'm starting to think that this is a longer game than just Sidious. That his master, the master before him, forced the Jedi to get insular and connected to Coruscant and connected to the government to start this, right? And that this is and that Sidious took whatever's plan and kept rolling with it, right? To do this. Yeah. And so, it is hard. This is an era that's really hard to watch because you're watching the Jedi sometimes at their worst. But the thing to remember, I think, and you all do, is that the core tenets of the Jedi are good, and just, and right. It's just that, bureaucracies fail sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, and she was.
Yeah, there's no emotion, there's peace.
Yeah.
We hear the sort of Jedi code a lot. In this
Oh,
movie.
that's like my favorite is when she switches the code.
Yeah.
And the little
Yeah.
kid, the youngling catches her. She's like, "Good, you caught my test." Oh boy.
Whoopsie daisy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I loved how she kept going back to that motif with the Jedi code, because it's like when you're just seeing, you know, all your friends buried in anonymous graves like every week, you know, back on Coruscant. That was a pretty cool vantage point, actually. It was just like, you know, a Jedi that was sort of trapped on the core while everyone's running out, and like no one sees Anakin or, you know, or they don't see Obi-Wan or Ahsoka because they're always out, like they're always fighting.
Yeah.
And you're like, you kind of appreciate that too. It's like, that's crazy. Like, rotate back for a minute.
I have a couple things I want to talk about. We don't have to talk about it now, but I want to put it out there so I don't forget.
Sure.
Great. You've already mentioned it, and it's Order 66. So we definitely have to hit up Order 66. You also put it out there about via text. You mentioned the Battle of Geonosis and the Battle of the Petronaut
being the most impactful. Battle in history.
I want to make sure we don't have to hit it now because those might be deep things. But this book, as you kind of hinted to, changed my perspective on both of those things a little bit, and I want to talk about those at some point.
Right.
So we can talk about now, or we can defer. But I just want to put it out there so we don't forget.
We will definitely talk about those things.
I mean, I did want to talk about how she was groomed. I mean, like, another force in her was definitely coming from the Emperor. Like, he was already tabbing Jedi for, you know, for the Inquisitorious while this is going on, which makes sense.
Yeah.
She's like Palpatine. Great.
Love this dude. He seems
Palpatine.
like a good guy.
Yeah.
Great vibes.
Totally speaking
Right.
my, you know.
Right. And so that's the last thing, is the nature nurture thing, which we talked about a little bit. But like, I mean, how much of her is pure dark side? Because I believe that like the dark side just actually resonated with her, and that was like whatever, part of her deal. And you know, when she went on that Sith planet Thule, you know, she was like, it feels like home. Love it here. Like, what is that about?
Yep.
Right, so dark and foreboding. They're like, oh, we have to climb a sheer cliff. She's like, oh, I love climbing.
This is great.
I was like, okay, she's just ready for field missions.
She is. And I love the fact that she thought she was going to go back to her home planet. It would be the same thing, and it's not. Right. And so it seems to be it's not part of her species. It's something about the dark side. And I mean, not to open this can of worms, but the sequel trilogy taught us that people are pulled to the dark and the light.
Yeah.
Right? And there is you can fight against that, right? Like Kylo was the whole thing. One of my favorite things about the sequel trilogy is like his thing. I feel the pull towards the light. It's one of my favorite moments in all of Star Wars. And so it gets a reverse, but this idea he's trying to be a dark side person, but he's feeling that pull to the light. And Rey through the entire series, not as well constructed in the films, I would argue, but is being pulled towards the dark, right?
Yeah, and I feel like that's beautifully illustrated in this, where she's meditating with Master Ume in the morning, but then you having all these dark thoughts, and it's just like I would love to see that visually, you know, cinematically portrayed. And it's just a powerful moment.
Yeah, and I think you're right, Ben. I think it is something innate, and I don't know what that innate is. I'm not going to like talk about genetics, but there is something about maybe the dark side latches on or feels something and pulls them, and I think there's also a bit of with her backstory, maybe we would call it genetic trauma, which is a very debatable thing, but like a forced trauma in her history, right, that she's feeling, and the fact that like I feel like if she had the right master, or if the Order 66 never happened, she probably could have been a very adept Jedi, right? She could have been a Mace Windu. I think Mace Windu's pulled to the dark.
Yeah, I mean, she did have the coolest job in the whole Jedi like group.
The job I want,
right? So, I mean, her master, she's following her master around, chasing down Sith relics to be hidden away. I mean, relics of all, but I mean, you know, and she did come into close contact with that Sith relic like early in the book, and that was like a kind of a formative moment for her. And she ended up going back to it, which I thought was fantastic. But I wonder, did she get tainted? Like, you know, who knows?
Who knows? And I love that we don't know. Always, right? Like this is key story. Star Wars storytelling is provide multiple options. Do not provide the direct answer.
Yeah, I think we have a Sith text in this. I think Semberve, her master, initially uncovers a Sith text, and she feels a pull to that as well in the beginning. And that's a great, you know, kickoff for the book, a sort of foreshadowing element. That's just like, this is going to be about someone's, you know, their first contact with the dark side, and then deeper and deeper plunge into what it means, the dark side and his Inquisitorious and all
Yep.
this stuff. But I loved Sembreve. I thought that character was super cool, and she dies tragically like right away in the book, and it's another tragedy in Iskat's life. So just lots of obstacles.
Lots of obstacles. Another thing that is in this book is kind of red herrings, which is also another one of my favorite. Again, having been an adept, Ben and I talked a bit about this weekend, but being an adept Stephen King reader, Stephen King loves a red herring, or like a false foreshadow, which is one of my favorite things. There's two things that kind of relate to that: is Hizo, right? Like the little kindly droid mechanic. This is that Hizu, right? Is the one that she finds like in the is it Hizu, the one that does all the droid mechanics that keeps like somewhat mentoring him? I was reading some like, is that just Palps? Is Palps grooming her this early? Because he kept saying things that were kind of just like, I really was like, no, they didn't, but I was like, I'm getting real Palps vibes from this dude, right? I'm just like, good. And then the other one,
he's that same species that's explored in the Han Solo books, like the Salonians, the attack on Center Point.
Yep.
Attack on Salonia.
So
that was it's cool to
totally
recanonize the Salonians.
It's so much recanonization. I just learned about another one from this week, but we'll talk about that later, or a possible one. So the other one is that I was trying to find Wikipedia to find it, but the student that she hurt in this exercise, we talked about this earlier, when she was younger, she was supposed to pull
Tana or something.
Yeah, I couldn't remember her name.
I believe. Yeah.
Did either of you keep waiting for that character to show up at some point? I kept
Yes.
waiting for that to be a thing, and it wasn't. Which I'm like, great, that person's off doing whatever. But I kept waiting for that to kind of pop up. I'm glad it didn't, but I was just like, oh yeah, they're totally gonna. This is gonna be like a turn later on that she's gonna have to deal with, and it just wasn't there, which is it makes sense. But I thought that was another kind of red herring a little bit, which I love.
Kind of unneeded. We already got the dramatic, juice from that squeeze. With the backstory. So we didn't dive into that too much. But it could have been cool. It could have been cool to see it like as a parallel thing when she's teaching younglings, and like maybe she's stuck doing something else because her spine was broken or something, and it's just.
But I love that it's not like I agree with you. I don't think we needed it. I just was expecting it, and I think it's really a deft storytelling. Where it's just like, no, this is not going to add anything. It's not about where this character ended up. It's about not knowing where this character ended up. That really messed with her, right? Yeah.
Indeed.
Lots of lightsaber training in this book, nonstop, basically. I was like, Ben's.
Oh yeah, can we do a quick lightsaber corner, and then we'd definitely move on to our.
Yes, please.
Iskat ached to unhook her lightsaber. Its hilt was short and a good bit wider than most to accommodate her longer fingers. Crafted of polished burgundy wood with the polished tooth of a Firaxan shark at the end. So
I want this saber.
That is a winner, just like mahogany wood, and then like a tooth on the end, a shark tooth on the end.
That's great.
Beastly.
Give us the Black Series figure.
Yeah,
that'd be great.
Totally.
Yeah,
it would be cool to get like the Jedi, like a Padawan series or something that's all like the Inquisitors before they were Inquisitors, and then after.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
I want to know what the name of this book was before it was decided on, probably by Lucas Books or Disney Publishing, because this book, the title of the book makes sense. You want to know, like, as you're picking it up, you want to know what it is. But for the Rise of the Red Blade, it really should be the Rise of the Yellow Blade.
I know.
Right?
Yeah. It was all about that yellow lightsaber.
Which I loved, right? Yeah.
Right. I mean, they said her mom's lightsaber was essentially its twin, right? Which is eerie.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, definitely in dimension, I guess, because they do have, like, large hands or long fingers.
Right.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah. It's also pretty, like, this book's pretty dark in terms of descriptions and sort of, like, can be graphic at times. Like when Sembreve dies, her master, she's like coughing up blood and it's just pretty intense stuff. Like Delilah S. Dawson really does a great job illustrating the trauma, I think, like of just the war scenes and the fighting. Every fight in the book is pretty intense. It's not like people die in these fights constantly. That's what's really compelling about the book, is it feels like a little grimdark,
Yeah.
but Star Wars, which is like I welcome that tone. That's actually a new
Yeah.
sort of tone that I'd love to see, which is like a little darker, version of what we love. So
Yeah, for sure.
We get an impaling, which is the internet's favorite thing to argue about, which is lightsaber impaling. Have we been following that whole annoying argument on the internet
not.
since
you
the
mean
beginning of
cauterization
Ahsoka?
and could you survive if you were
So
impaled?
everyone shows Qui-Gon Jinn getting impaled, and he's like dies instantly. Why did all these other people are getting impaled like don't die in Star Wars?
Well, what are they talking about?
Like,
Sabine?
because
I mean, she got hit in the shoulder, right?
Sabine. There was Sabine and another one. I can't remember the other one. That's somewhat
Grand Inquisitor.
recent. Grand Inquisitor, right? And so they're like kind of going at Disney Plus because as the.
Do you think the stakes have fallen through the floor in Star Wars? Yes, I do. In sort of like theatrical Star Wars or Lucasian Star Wars, but Andor, no. I think Andor is sort of brought back stakes in the major.
I will also argue my argument is it also depends on like where you impale someone, because a lightsaber is actually a really inefficient way to kill someone because it cauterizes. So unless you actually hit the heart, you're not killing that person. That person is not dead. And like a heart is like size of your fist. And so it's really easy to miss. And what I love about this book is like we see that explanation. Like we see that it sucks and she is in Bacta, but like because of her physiology, they miss the heart. Like he misses.
She has two hearts.
The two hearts. Yeah.
Yoda,
and so that's the whole thing is like
when you
in
your hearts. I'm like, nice. Their heart conscience.
Yeah. It just the whole thing's been driving me nuts because you watch it. I'm like, Qui-Gon got hit directly in the heart, and you watch the other two, and you're like, yeah, that's not the heart. So anyway, I think internet shut up is what I'm trying to say.
A hip or something like that.
Yeah.
So I think it's not that bad.
But it's weird because you got to make it close enough so that the person who does it walks away thinking they killed the person, right? It's a weird needle to thread. But yeah. Oh yeah, but great. Yes, the stakes have been lowered.
He gets stabbed like twice by Anakin, and it's like a graphic match sort of thing, and it's just super disturbing. I was like, I could have gone without this.
I will always argue like you can say that like
compelling.
You can say the Disneyfication, but watch Obi-Wan. There's brutal fucking scenes in Obi-Wan with Vader that is like some of the most brutal Vader we've seen.
Yeah,
like him walking through that town, throwing
like
people against stuff, and like children running out with their dead father. I'm like, yeah, where's that? Where have you seen that in a Lucas film?
Bambi.
Speaking of Vader, we get a Vader fight in this book too.
Mm-hmm.
Where he just like breaks her hand, squishes her hand.
Sore loser.
Yeah,
she actually got him with a disconnecting circuits in his head.
Got him.
That was I wouldn't want to mess him up. But then he like put her in a back to tank for 3 days with a force push after like as he was running out.
Yep.
Yeah, she was like away from the room or something and like gets smacked running into the wall.
Yeah. Yeah, wild Vader stuff here. And then of course, they almost get him at the end, which is the novel or the comic adaptation. But no.
Yeah. Right.
No. Yeah. It's so wild. I loved how she's just like, oh, I feel so much more attached to the Force now when she's like reaching for the dark side and there's this bottomless well of power. And then she's around Darth Vader and she's like, oh, nope, it's quite small actually compared to like Vader's like well of Force energy.
Yeah.
Right.
We get some Jedi Archives action in this book too.
Right.
We get some Jocasta Nu.
Jocasta Nu, always
whenever
welcome.
someone searches for stuff in the databanks and then that information's been deleted, that always works. Like that for me, that's like for like sleuthing 101 in Star Wars. Like, yeah, let's start there. The databank, it's been deleted. Right. Interesting mystery. I'm following.
It's because this is is that post Geonosis where she.
It's post Geonosis, yes.
So this is the second time that someone has come to Jocasta Nu and says it's been deleted from it, and she seems to have the same response. And I feel like she should be like, again,
right.
On.
She'd be like, not again. Yeah. Or that happens all the time.
We meet Hizo after that. The Salonian. We talked about that guy though.
Yeah.
Yeah. It seems weird that there's like the secret garden in the middle of the Jedi temple that no one seems to know about other than Hizo and
I think
I like
bet
it.
there's
It's
several. I
odd.
bet there's a ton, but this was just like a seldom used one.
Yeah, just random
that's was
doors.
my
This was the
head
first
canon.
Yeah.
book where it's like doors were opening. It's like there's a brig. I didn't know this brig existed, and it was like there's all these hidden spaces. But I think Dawson does a great job moving through
I mean,
space and describing
it's
environments. Just
Yeah.
really was
I mean,
falling into those.
not to reference another thing, but one of the things in Loki season 2 of them just wandering around and accidentally wandering into a room. Like I'm just like, where are we? Oh, this is a major important thing. Like that's a great like when you're in like a labyrinthian like bureaucracy, there are rooms.
Not since Mando season 1 has an episode 2 been so phenomenal in a season of television. Loki season 2, episode 2.
Episode 2. Agreed. Yeah.
Just the entire interrogation scene. It's just it's good.
Yes, so good. So good. Yeah. So
are we up to Gintho yet?
Oh, hold on.
Sorry, we're not
before we get to Gintho, which no, we will 100%. I just want because Riva was mentioned.
Oh yes.
And so I was sitting there going like, so when was this written? I was reading behind the scenes, and this was written kind of in dialogue with Obi-Wan, right? Because like they wanted to have a book that came out that kind of like described why a Jedi would fall, why a Jedi would become an Inquisitor, right? Like why is this? How can this happen? That's how it was pitched to Delilah. Who's like, again, the best person to write that book. I'm sure she was just like, yes, please. But no Riva in this book, right? Like I was kind of surprised. I kept waiting for like a just a random like come across Riva. Is the timeline just not right?
I think she's at the end of a hall or something. She's mentioned, right?
But yeah, right? There's like a mysterious figure at the end of the hallway. I thought maybe
they sort of it was either Tualon or it was Riva, but I think they mentioned Riva as one of the new recruits or some like she describes her in the hallways or something at the Inquisitors.
So I'm trying to figure out like age and because she's not around until I guess she wouldn't have been that much younger.
I happened to look it up. Iskat was born 40 years before the Battle of Yavin, and died 12 years before.
Okay, and Riva was like a little kid when
Order 66
Vader came through.
Yeah.
And I think that's how she was mentioned too, as like a younger girl with like a black braid.
So she'd be young, right? Yeah.
Younger.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
She was a youngling, right? So we know
Yeah.
Scat was around a lot of younglings. So
right. It would have been funny if there was an interaction there.
Oh yeah. It's weird, right? Because it's like there's so much cross storytelling in this. They reference the Obi-Wan and Anakin book that came out.
Yeah.
Right, because the bombing of Pneumonia. Cadia Pneumonia, thank you.
Yeah.
And a couple other books, a couple other comics lines they referenced happenings of. So I was just like waiting for Riva. Literally through the whole book, I'm like, it's gonna happen now.
Yeah.
There were
Pong Krell
and the book
shout out.
Yeah, I was gonna say there are a lot of good references. Pong Krell is like, oof.
Yeah.
She's like, you should go spar with Pong Krell, and he like didn't have any time for her.
He's like the master of dual wielding,
yeah.
right? Like, yeah. So you want to dual wield.
Yeah, go. I was like, that would be. I'm like, that would advance things.
Dawson mentions Jedi healers in this book. So there was a group of Jedi who just focused on healing. And so when we talk about force healing being, only a late, stage sort of force power in sort of the canonical timeline of Star Wars and the storytelling, it's like healing has actually been around for quite a long time. And it's interesting to see it mentioned in this book and sort of describe a sort of unit of the Jedi being dedicated to that. It's super cool.
But Gintho, as you were saying, Grant.
Yeah, but that's not so great when you die out in the field on Thule, like Josk and
Oh man, that was heavy, dude. Just like, he's gone. Just like fell off a cliff and died.
Also, I'm on Iskat's side on his death.
Are you?
There's nothing she could have done. I am.
But yeah, he would have just
She could have force grabbed him, and then he would have died in midair instead of died before he hit the ground because of the poison.
Yeah. But still, she should have just to make sure. She would have been like, "All right, like go reach," and then she'd be like, "Oh, he's." I don't know. There could have been options.
I will admit. but I think this is kind of lends support to your like, untrusting narrator, narrator, is that like she's internally over blaming herself. Where I think if she explained to them, I got distracted, I was thinking about something, I didn't grab him in time, I feel so guilty. They would have been like, yes, we need to work on that. However, he still would have died. You know what I mean? Of just like take the guilt out of it.
Which
but
she found out later,
that.
but it was like I don't know, it was like this juvenile frustration that she's like, none of you adults understand what I'm going through. And it's like, it's not like I haven't felt that way a million times, but, it was kind of energy used in the wrong direction.
Totally. And that's the thing, right? Like these, again, dealing with child soldiers, that you can do all of this. They still have teenage hormones running through them.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was a cool planet, though, too, Duel. Like, that was just a really cool design. Like, the slugs in the side of the mountain.
Yeah.
Lots of cool stuff. Like, taking out the... I love the sort of repercussions of that mission, too, where she gets back and she talks to Mace, and, like, they took out the installation, but, like, the Jedi Master died, and it's sort of like, we got the dub when it comes to the war effort, but, we did lose a teacher and all that stuff.
Some civilians,
Yeah. I think she's knighted after that. Like, are we close to the knighting after that? Or no, it's still a ways.
Is that, I mean, she had a couple of detentions, but she did 2 full years at least, right? Or was it, 2 full years of babysitter duty after one of those failures. So that's a thing. It's like, she is such a good fighter, but they're just like, they didn't want to tempt fate. And they're like, nope, you just focus on being a good person and take care of our youth.
But they eventually did, right? Like I feel like part of it is, again, they needed a warrior, and they were just so willing to just buy what she was saying. And just like, yep, you said the right things.
That was an interesting twist too, that she was sent out to kill Grievous. So it was like,
that's what I wanted to talk about with Order 66.
Yeah.
So do you want to talk about that?
Let's do it. Yeah. So that's what's fascinating. We can't undermine Palpatine. So, like, when I think about the history of Star Wars and I think about the Jedi and sort of their downfall, like we constantly undermine just how calculated this plan was that Palpatine sort of deployed, which was let's send Grievous to all these Outer Rim worlds and have him just ping pong around, and it's genius once you think about the plan.
Yeah,
it's genius.
That's the question
draws
I had.
All the Jedi out into the outer reaches of the galaxy, and they're all spread thin out there, and they're with a small
surrounded by clone troopers.
Each one of them with a detachment of clones.
That was my question: is did we know that before this book? Because that's the first time I was like, that felt like new information to me. Like that was part of the plan and when Obi-Wan got that, because that's Obi-Wan's call, right? Obi-Wan just happened to be given the right coordinates.
Is Caddy Remy just sitting at a console being like, it looks like Grievous is on Olgathon 3. It looks like Grievous is on Duel. It looks like he's just saying different planets that he could be on, and then just they're like, deploy. I'm like, what is happening at the Jedi Temple? Like, what is going?
Again, not trained for war tactician,
Yeah, but
no, that was one of those things where I'm loving. I'm like, oh my god, like that and the Geonosis reframed a lot of the stuff for me, and like I give a lot of S to Palpatine about his according to my plan, but that's mostly late stage Grievous,
Sidious.
or late stage Sidious. Like prequel era Sidious is like on point. like he's got it all figured out and is working. Everything is working.
He invented the mustache to twirl.
Honest to God,
I need something to twirl.
He just like puts on a fake mustache.
He's like,
peels it off.
I've always wanted a mustache. So she gets sent out to hunt Grievous, like so many Jedi, and then that's when the clones turn on them. But in a unique situation, sort of a hollow message chimes in right after Sulin, I think, one of the Jedi dies, and then she gets a hollow message from a cloaked figure telling her that she has a choice to go for freedom and to go find the answers that she seeks and all this sort of stuff, and then she goes with the clones, and
she goes, let me think about it. Yes.
And then she leaves her Jedi friend to just.
You had me at not kill me.
Taking it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not ready to join the Force
just
yet. If we could just hang on a couple beats here.
I mean, I don't want to get too
Captain Spider.
Talk about too sensitive. Captain Spider, yes, but I don't want to get
I just need to say that because
no, I mean, awesome. I don't want to get too like into sensitive territory, but like the her pushing back against the rejoice because they have become one with the Force. Like I really appreciate that storytelling and like from her perspective of just like, no, I don't know what that means. Like we're living in a place where there's no
death, there's the Force, and she's like, wait, there is death though. Everyone's dying around
and we're not
me.
We're not in
this is dark.
We're not in an era of Force ghosts where they know that the spirit lives on, right? So I'd be like her too, be like, no, thank you. I will 100% let this guy who has just been kind of a jerk to me the entire time maybe get blown away. We'll revisit that. I will come with you and see how my fates lie. Yeah. What else?
Yeah, that scene was just unique. I thought it was a new angle on Order 66, and it was just a haunting environment. Sort of the description of like their fields and just dark trees and stuff like that around them, and then just clones sort of turning on. It's just great imagery. I just really like just that whole.
Totally.
Yeah.
And another little tone poemy moment where she feels Order 66, much like Yoda. Like it's the only we haven't. If you think about it, like I love that storytelling. Her just feeling all of them wiped out.
Yeah,
like it's kind of.
I mean,
really
that's
powerful.
one of her charms as our narrator, right? Is she's extra sensitive, literally. Like in the Force, she can sense feelings, emotions, and beings, and she knows what's going on. So it makes sense that she would sense the the purge.
Yeah.
And so then I think we started to learn about Picori at that point, right? Like, does that when we start to learn about her planet and sort of like
we still didn't talk about Gintho.
She jumped.
He was a hacker and an He's a hacker and an Anzellan. That was cool.
Go for it. Yeah,
the best character
in
the book.
Yeah, he's the one that sends her. Right? Maybe was he the one that cracked the message? Cracked, quote unquote, the message for. Yeah. Anyways, that's all there is. It's yet another Anzellan.
An Anzellan in like a.
They're just mashing the Anzellans.
It's a battle droid suit, right? Or like a kind of augmented sort of battle.
Yeah,
battle
with
droid.
like a fishbowl on the top of it.
Yeah, Anzellan. They sit in the top of it. Yeah.
I just remembered that. That's sorry.
Yeah.
I just remembered that Krogu was in IG 11's body. Sorry.
Oh, yeah,
I'm like, oh yeah, that wasn't a fever dream. That actually happened. Sorry. I'm like, oh yeah, we have precedents for that of just like tiny beings in the middle of a giant droid. Oh boy.
It's just out there in the Star Wars galaxy all over the place. I love it.
Yeah, and I, and to go back to like the faulty narrator or issue with Iscariot, and I want to talk about something that may be a little sensitive. So I want to tread lightly around this, but I want to use the author's own words here. So she has an author's note at the beginning of this, and we're not going to get heavy into it, but most of that note is talking about suicide, right, and the role that plays, and that's really like I was in for just the author's note in terms of her doing this and talking about this and sharing herself. But she talks about, and she's talked about this as well on her Instagram. So she's very out there in public. So I'm not outing her, and I feel better about this. But she talks about being neurodivergent, and I feel like, and as a person who teaches a lot of neurodivergent people, I feel like Iscariot is, and Delilah talks about her connections as character is somewhat neurodivergent and may have trouble reading emotions of others people, right, or reading things about other people, and I feel like that feeds into some of this, right, of this ability of to not be able to understand, so feeling kind of the worst. And it's hard to talk about that in a galaxy far, far away when you're talking about like the Force and other things, but I feel like this is a really interesting area, and it's kind of all I want to say, because I don't want to get too far afield and out of depth here and sensitive and being around people who and have loved ones and family members are neurodivergent. But I think that's might be part of what she was doing here, of trying to write her own experience around this a little bit. And I found it beautiful.
Yeah.
If that's what she was doing.
I thought that was a really compelling note at the start that really, I think, tugged at the heartstrings immediately. And I just immediately knew that this was going to get into some pretty heavy material, especially with her mother, which we find out is just like, and there is this pulsing darkness from her past that's sort of just echoing through her mind throughout the whole book. And it's sort of, it really can capture the sort of depths and sadness people can feel. And I think the book is just wonderful and sort of capturing that. And then, but, you know, finding a way out of that for Iskat, which was just so wonderful, where she sort of is not plagued by that same darkness that, you know, or just the happenstance that with her mother and what happened there, and so she finds a way, but it seems to be it's a way that that felt like wasn't, she would have been a great Jedi if Sidious had not planned this, you know, horrific sort of dark, you know, decision to destroy the galaxy and destroy the Republic. If he did not do that, I think that, you know, she would be a Jedi, and she'd be a fantastic Jedi.
There's part of me is like, she would have been on the council. Like that's like, it's like, I just love this idea of just like the like, it's so easy in the stories to just watch like the bloodshed and the lost lives and be sympathetic to that, but to give this idea of just like the lost potential of Iskat because of everything that surrounded her, you know, is really fascinating. It puts a really, you know, quote unquote human view on the stuff that's easy to lose when you're watching just the prequels.
Yeah, it's tough to put a human filter on the Jedi because it's pretty monstrous. Like, I mean, they're ripped away from their families. They're made orphans. You know, I'm sure they're cared for in some way, but there's no mother or father figures to be like named. It's kind of a loveless environment, even though they're being taught to experience love. Like, you know, it's not. You can't really make an analog to it.
I wrote down a note
without the Force, like
Ben, that kind of pertains to that.
Let's see if Grant has my note. I don't know
my
the
note
exact
is
quote.
kind of like the Jedi are. Well, first of all,
oh boy,
Iskat gets paired with a Jedi who sort of is more attached to her research and Jedi artifacts than her.
It's doing this out of a sense of an obligation.
But she also is with other Jedi throughout the book, and her relationship with these mentor figures, not her, you know, not her student body that she knows. Like it's
the mentors
mentor
that
figures.
They're
the ones. She keeps on saying that they're sort of aloof and constantly just sort of trying to meditate and be outside themselves and with the Force. None of the master characters are down to earth and sympathetic to any of
except
these
for
students.
one.
That's what's disheartening to me about the Jedi. I don't think it's hubris in that they think that they own the Force. I think they just think that they're just zealous in a way they're zealous in a way where they want to be without, and they want to.
They're zealots
out of
who
body.
don't want attachment.
Right.
Yeah.
And as a person who part of my job, I will just say, is to mentor people. It is impossible to mentor someone if you don't have an attachment with them. Like, that's impossible. It doesn't work. Like, and attachments can be bad. Like, you, like, as a person who has mentored a lot of people, you have to be aware of what that attachment is and what it means and where the lines are, right, with that attachment. But I'm still attached to the people I mentor and care about them and want them to succeed. Do they know my personal life or really important things about me? No, but I still care about them and want them to succeed. And that, in definition, is an attachment. Sorry. Yes.
And you're spending, night and day with them, basically all in the same building. Yeah. You're meditating and drinking tea together and dueling. Like, I don't get what you do other than grow attachments and sort of help each other succeed, like we're talking about.
Yeah.
And it's
I have a simple fix for the Jedi, which I hope we explore. There is no secret attachment. That's the fix.
Okay.
That is the fix. It's an HR problem. It's an HR problem.
Sure.
All attachments
must be public record.
Are talked about. Must be public record. Because think about it. There's an amazing scene that was cut from episode 3. Right? Have you seen that? The deleted scene, the cut scene with Obi-Wan talking to Padme about basically knowing.
Oh yeah.
Right.
We just didn't talk about it. I knew we didn't talk about it, and you were the only thing that made him happy. That's great. You know what would have been great? If you freaking talked to him about it, right? Like that probably would have prevented all of this.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, they do have
moving on.
Like they're like I don't really know much anything about any real cultures. I'm thinking like Buddhist monks, but it's like they have a relationship with a religion, but their religion is actually tangible. It's the Force. and
Yeah.
you know, and that's they can actually touch that. And so being like younger people and growing up with it, like maybe they are just built different, and maybe they don't need attachment. You know, that isn't a vital thing. Whereas like the human condition, I would say that's like as important as air and water, right? Like, and so yeah, I don't know. It's wild. There was one master though, and you just brought him up that didn't catch an L from his scat, and his name was Obi-Wan. Yep, that's it. Obi-Wan had always been kind to her. When he'd taken his turn teaching the youngling, but he'd been kind to everyone. He was exactly the kind of Jedi master she would have chosen. Knowledgeable and skilled, but with a friendly nature and quick with a positive word when it was deserved. She would be proud to be part of the mission that ensured his safety. So, yeah, I'm just saying, and it is kind of funny in that tone poemy way where it's like, it's so funny because Obi-Wan didn't pick his, you know, like maybe in another universe he would have picked her. Like, who knows? Maybe that would have worked out. But yeah, he didn't pick his Padawan either and was just doing his best and thought of himself as completely flawed. And yeah, but anyways, also that was just blatant Kenobi fan gushing for the day.
I mean, it's weird, right? Because we talk about the issue of Kenobi with Anakin. Kenobi is still like my number one Jedi, like my number one Jedi master. Like, so I mean, like, yeah, he made some mistakes, but I feel like he had figured it out. Like, if you could just like base the entire Jedi Order on like late stage Kenobi, who had figured it all out, we'd go, oh,
right. I mean, and this is what we keep talking about with Jedi, right? It's like Obi-Wan had it where it counted. You know, he was thrown into a lot of impossible positions, did his best with what he's got, and that was kind of it. And I mean, that's a Jedi Order,
he started
right?
the upward trend, right?
He did.
Yeah, upward trend towards there being a Jedi Order again.
But it's like the Jedi Order is inherently good.
The Jedi fell, and then he had to train one kid. You know, it's he's an important Jedi.
But yeah, I mean, it's a metaphor for the whole Jedi Order, right? It was like, no, the doctrine's good, the thing's in the right place, but sometimes things just go sideways.
Yeah.
Ways.
Can I talk about like someone real dark for a minute?
Let's get weird.
Oh, okay.
I mean, dark.
All right. I mean,
dark book. We can do it. Yeah.
All right. So I think this is the first time I've read the events of Darth Vader 27 to Is that right? Like, 27 or Darth Vader 19 and 20, the 2017 one. And I'm checking the date. Yes. This is the first time I've read this since becoming a parent.
Sorry. Trigger warning.
That was. I remember having like, oh, that's right. They just like pull this newborn baby away from its mother. They're like, oh boy, and it's fine. It's not even part of me going like, you shouldn't write that. Yeah. I'm like, that had the intended.
Yeah, the whole point was to crush the woman's spirit.
Like,
just like she'll never try.
It's horrible. It's awful, and they're Sith, so they should be horrible and awful. But so then I'm just like, now I just went down the Wikipedia hole of like, whatever happened to that baby?
I don't know.
I don't know. We don't know. We don't know. Like that last thing we see is like Vader holding the baby and giving it to like Sith. They call them nursemaids. But it's hard to call like a Sith, like, or some part of the Emperor's nursemaids. But like that's like part of me is like, can I just get a one-off? Can you give me like a 15-page short story that just says like, and she turned out fine, or even like became like an Inquisitor? Like, it's just so weird to be like, this baby that get kidnapped and like, yeah, we're never gonna talk about what happened to that kid. I'm like, all right, that's upsetting. Sorry. Do we think she's fine? Is she fine? Can we say she's fine?
I'm sure she's fine. She lived a long, healthy life. I mean, probably involved in the path at some way.
I'm sure, right? Palpatine didn't train her for her force, right? Like, she didn't get put into like a force blender. It's fine. It's all fine. I'm gonna sleep tonight. It's fine.
I actually want a comic book run on the Sith nursemaids. I want to know what that's like. At least an issue.
They are. I'm looking at them right now. They are fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What
haven't
we talked about?
We could talk about the Battle of Geonosis.
I feel like we've kind of covered that.
What about the seventh? What about the Inquisitorious? We're not there yet. Oh, we can go back to the Battle of Geonosis because I feel like there's a lot going on there that we could.
Yeah.
Go for it.
I keep forgetting how many Jedi were killed in that thing. Every time I hear the numbers, right? And I don't have the numbers in front of me, but like hundreds upon hundreds of Jedis were killed. Like that's the other thing that I always have to remind myself when it comes to like the beginning of the Clone Wars of just how many Jedi were wiped out in that first battle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, lots. And Iskot thinks she could have made a difference. She was just, they unleashed her on all the droids that were there. That was just, it was so cool when that scene's described too, where Mace just appears and ignites his saber as like a beacon for all the Jedi, and they all ignite. It was so cool. But
and it says
it
this
feels
party
like lots
is
of Jedi
over.
die in that moment.
It's the answer is 179.
Thank you. I could see you furiously Googling while I was talking.
Out of 212,
that.
they lost 83% of the Jedi that were on that mission.
That's wild.
And
right?
they had to leave their dead. They had to leave their fall.
Yeah.
That
just leave them there. Yep.
Brutal.
Yeah. So again, things that are sometimes lost when you're watching a film. Like I'm sure if you go back, you watch a lot of them get like mowed down, right? Like when you're watching that battle. But like think that they were. If you show me that movie, if you show me that scene, I would not assume there were 220 odd Jedi there, and that they lost 80 some odd percent. Like that's wild.
Yeah.
Yep. Brutal.
Yeah. Do we know how many Jedi in total there were at the start of the Clone Wars? Like at that, just around the time of the Battle of Geonosis? Do we know?
I think 10,000 is what's in my head.
Yeah, I thought it was.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm going with too.
Upwards of 10,000 area or 20, but it's just amazing. It's just incredible that they start knighting all these young.
Wikipedia is saying
that seems
around 10,000.
Issue.
10,000 seems to be the 10,000 seems to be the agreed upon number.
Kanan Jarrus said there were more than 10,000 Jedi Knights defending the galaxy.
Which sounds like a lot, but remember you're talking about a galaxy.
And a war of attrition over 2 years. It's just like dozens each week would be coming back dead, and
It will. I think that actually, because 10,000, it's a weird thing. That is the right number in terms of like that makes sense in terms of having a large force in a galaxy, but small enough that I think what we hear in A New Hope of just like people being like, Jedi, fine, I've heard of them, I've never met them. If there are 10,000 Jedi in the galaxy, odds are 99.99999% of the people in the galaxy had never met a Jedi in their life. Like, and that makes sense, right? So then when they're all gone, except for like, I know we always joke about, I joke about how many people like survived Order 66, but at the end of the day, we're talking about like maybe a couple dozen. Like that's tiny amount, and you're not going to encounter a Jedi in the galaxy at all. So,
the number I'd like to know that I'll never know is how many habitable planets are there in the galaxy. I feel like, I would like to think that's in the thousands, and for storytelling purposes, it doesn't really matter, right? You can just sort of keep making new places, but I'd love to make it feel even larger, and I feel like we just keep running into the same creatures over and over again.
Yeah.
Or species over and over again.
Well, I do have a Wikipedia. There is an answer. How many did you want?
Thousands.
3.2 billion habitable systems.
Perfect. Good.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
Is however the canon says 3.2 million. So it's unclear we're talking about B with a billion or M with a million, but either way,
that's
a whole heck of a lot.
That's a couple more stories than we've got.
Yeah. And I kind of want to pull out my TI-86 and start crunching numbers, but that's not fun for anyone here, so I won't.
Are you gonna do a little make a sine wave for us?
You're still a Jedi, so you'll have some.
I could. Yeah.
Right on. Anything else?
Love Grand Inquisitor coming back in this book. Like that was awesome.
Yeah.
He was written beautifully.
Great man.
Yeah. So if we're kind of done with the main plot points of the book, I have kind of a larger question. It's not a big thing, but I have kind of like a larger question since we're talking about in the Inquisitors.
Sure.
If we're ready for it, which is not like, this is not, I feel like I'm building it up, but I just want to have a question of like, so we had the Inquisitors in Rebels pretty much alone, and now we've expanded it, right? We've seen them in Obi-Wan live action. We've seen them in Ahsoka. We now have books with Inquisitors. How do we feel now about the Inquisitors? Because I will say personally, where I started out, which was like, like I was not a fan of the Inquisitors.
For our podcast listeners,
that was a thumb down. You probably figured out from the noise effect.
If you're watching,
but that's where I started. No spoilers. But how are we? You can talk about. I'm interested to hear both of you. Where'd you start? Where are you now?
Ben.
Oh, yeah.
Ben loved it. Still loves
it. I know. I wish I would say it started from a place of confusion, where I'm like, why are they all dressed the same, and why those lightsabers? Okay, but like now I'm at a place where we've given so much more context to who these people are, and especially like Fallen Order, that video game, you really get to understand what some of them went through, and they've made them like more interesting characters. I'm okay. I would say I went from confused to cool with it. I mean, it kind of makes sense. It's kind of an interesting order, like, yeah. I guess Sidious just loved order, and he loves uniforms, and he loves like denominations of troopers, and like I guess I just found it curious how they were all so made generic or like made homogenous by the Empire is just like kind of a head scratcher to me. But it makes sense because that's what Sidious does. He just like, you do this, you are all pieces on a chessboard that only I know is being played.
And if you're trying to brainwash, which this part of the book that we didn't hit on, there is brainwashing going on for some of the other characters. Like that's one of the things you do is remove any personal or anything that makes you an individual.
Yeah,
right.
That's a good point. It's like the cult thing, and they just strip you down, and this is what you are. And now that we know that so many were sort of forced into it, it's really dark.
Mm. Yeah, I've always thought they were incredible, like an incredible idea, and like a logical idea for Jedi 66 to basically go to the dark side and embrace the dark, and sort of because of the trauma sort of enact all these atrocities. It makes sense. My problem with the Inquisitors has always been that they look so cool. They almost look, their aesthetic is almost more interesting than Vader at times, and sort of like just a lot of them look really cool. And I was like, I almost thought Vader was like the only one out there who looked like that for a very long time, and he kind of looks like a dork next to them sometimes. And I'm just like, I don't know if that's the best idea in terms of the Star Warsian approach to the sort of grandiose theatrical approach to kind of make Darth Vader seem like just one in the sea of people wearing shiny black gear that looks really cool and all tricked out. And so I just that for me was an aesthetic thing for a long time, but I love the concept. Like I think it's super logical that is out there. I almost wish there was just more mystique, and I think there's a little overexposed. But this book and reading it in sort of literary form, like reading about them, super compelling. Love it. Like I really like them in sort of the novel space. When they enter the cinema, or we see them on Disney Plus shows and things like that, I'm just like or Rebels even, where they're flying around like helicopters. I'm just like, this is kind of overexposed. Yeah. This is kind of like, they could be far more mysterious in my opinion, but love the concept. I think it's cool.
Yeah. I think I'm right there with you, Grant. To the point where I'm like, when I first saw them in Rebels, I just got to be honest. I made the noise earlier. I did not like it at all. And I love Rebels, but I'm like, it just felt very cartoony of just like, all right, we have to create these bad guys, right? And they did some good work with them. And then, but I think, again, I know it's an internet thing, and I'm not trying to be that person, but like when they started flying around with helicopters, I was just like, I'm out. But then I'm like, but rewatching Rebels, I'm like, okay, don't care, whatever. Like there's so much good stuff, and I enjoyed it. And then seeing them a bit in Obi-Wan, I was like, yeah, I'm okay with them. And then seeing Marok in Ahsoka, I'm like, this is perfect. This is great. Like don't explain.
No lines.
Just a weird guy.
Highly mysterious.
Made of gas. It's great. Yeah. And then this book, I think I kind of love that. Like
great.
I think they're a really beautiful addition to the Star Wars galaxy that I never thought I wanted. Like I just watching this idea of just like this person's descent, but also giving us a variety of descents. Does that make sense? Of just like not all of them having the same story. Like she just like freely chose it. There are other people that just like chose it as survival. There's other people that went to it. There's other people that were like, electrocuted and tortured into deciding to join the Inquisitorious. Like I thought that was really interesting. And I think what like everyone complains about, not everyone, sorry, a select few on the internet complains about how many people survived Order 66. And I'm like, but that's why you also need, like, that's why this is here. Like there's a reaction to that. If it was just like they all survived and there was nothing, it'd be whatever. But they all survived, and it makes sense that like a handful of these 10,000 people, even if like 100 survived, that is a successful culling, right? And then you need this other force to get rid of those. So I'm like, weirdly, I've been fighting headcanon for like, how long has it been since Rebels was introduced? 10 years? A little less than 10 years, but almost 10 years, almost a decade. Yeah. I've often been fighting headcanon about what I thought happened, as opposed to what the people who are the storytellers are telling me happened, who have the right to tell me what happened.
You mean your revisionist headcanon's been different for the last
I've been really years. Like fighting it, and then mostly fighting myself. And now I think this book got me to the point where I'm just like, yeah, this is it. Like, this is canon. Like, this is part of it 100%. And I just, again, want to, and I know sometimes
all the blanks and humanizing the Inquisitors.
That's the humanizing.
It's doing
that's the part.
so much work that I think not even Obi-Wan was able to do. Obi-Wan does do it, but just with a singular character. And it's compelling. But it's you almost, the way this book explores, you know, the web of all these different Inquisitors, I was like, this is so cool. Like, I love it. And then her friend, who, you know, she had this history with, is also an Inquisitor in a massive server of like
and had a very different journey. So, but that's the thing. Like, I feel like I like Reva. I like that character a lot. But that character, when I get to the end of Obi-Wan, does not feel like an Inquisitor to me. She feels like an undercover agent. Right, who's been gaming the system the entire time to get close to Vader, which I like. I like that. Which I like that story a lot. But it told me nothing about the Inquisitors, right? And I feel like this story, and I think Grant mentioned it earlier, it's the power of novel, of the written form, is that you're able to do long form and looks at internal monologues of a person. And like, I know we talk about sometimes off air of like overly gushing about things. But because we're all fans, but I'm kind of like with Meg, like this is probably in my top 5 Star Wars novels of new.
Yeah, this is definitely climbing the list.
Yeah, it's really up there for me. I'm not sure where, but boy, do I like it.
I mean,
because Dual in that. You go, Ben. Sorry.
I was just gonna add that. Yeah, I mean, listening to the brutal meritocracy of the Inquisitors. That's the story that I wanted to like see. This is what you kind of imagine. It's just totally at each other's throats, survival of the fittest. I mean, we saw a little bit of that in Obi-Wan between the 3 Inquisitors that were there. They were constantly at each other's throats, and it was like to see that written out this way was, I mean, it was terrifying. I mean, you're in a dark castle, and you don't even want to go into various sides of it because your coworkers could kill you. Like, it's just jump out of the shadows and murder you, and they would be like applauded for it. So it's tough work environment.
Just giving people daggers in the hallway. Seventh Sister v. Iskat. That was a sweet fight.
Yeah, we got it.
I had Wikipedia open so much in this book where they would name like one of the 5 or the number. I'd be like, I gotta check the.
That was Buffy the Vampire Slayer, right? And that's where she starts using droids. Was after she took that L, she started using droids, and then put Iskat.
Oh, that's right. Sarah Michelle Gellar voiced Seven Sisters. Is that right?
Yeah. Which again, makes sense.
Yeah. No, that's cool. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
It's a family. It's a family job.
That's Freddie Prinze, right? That'd be cool.
Yeah, that's Freddie Prinze. That would have been fun if husband and wife like fought. Like, one of those. I will just say,
the Muriel,
as a person who watched
and then a 5th brother. All of them are in there in this book.
Yeah, and it's the one that Cal Kestis fights in Jedi
in Fallen Order.
The first one, and then kills at the beginning. Fallen Order, and kills it at the beginning of
Ninth Sister.
Survivor, which is one of my favorite things in all of Star Wars. Which sounds weird to say.
Yeah, she's the they called Dualan or something. I forget that giant species. They're just
Dawson.
Yeah,
formidable.
Yeah, Dawson.
Yeah, that's right. Dawson. Yeah. Yeah, I love that it's just like you have to take, you have to just take what you want basically, and sort of like just fight for every little scrap of what you get in the Inquisitors,
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
Inquisitorious. That was
It,
just cool.
it was one of those things where at times I felt like, are we just dealing with like Harry Potter and like the Slytherins, and then like they would crush someone's hand or like
Right.
stab it through the chest. I'm like, oh yeah, no,
injured.
no,
Yeah.
this is real brutal. Yeah.
We almost forgot to talk about the bounty hunter king.
Oh right.
I'm trying to remember if I
yeah.
I had his thing right now, and no, I can't find it. And I don't have it because I'm the worst. Sorry.
I also want her friend, the Twillick Dwalin, who basically turns into an Inquisitor, stabs her,
Tualon, yeah.
all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was quite the love affair.
He is a pretty cool character.
Yeah.
And then there's
Yeah.
the foreshadowing where he's like, Joss Nevar died, but like, you could have saved him, right? Like, this has been weighing on my conscience for a while. It was kind of foreshadowing, like, he has been thinking about this for a while. This is why he's going to become an Inquisitor. It's like people are thinking about these traumas that they've had. So
they like,
I thought that was cool.
Yeah, unbalance the whole tea kettle, and then stuff spills out. All right, yeah, sorry. I was seeking the illustrious Lord Jadakiss, greatest bounty hunter of the Outer Rim.
Right.
I love that he's just like has his like little like kingdom, and then it just takes one Inquisitor to go in there and just kill everyone. And I love that she like murders him in the middle of like some monologue.
Yep,
that was a good time.
It's so good.
I also, in that scene, I appreciated the distinction between kind of clone troopers and purge troopers.
Yes, yeah.
Right? Like that discussion of just like, they're all business. They do not talk unless talked to. But they're not like faceless, because they talk about when she takes his armor.
Right, yeah.
Right? Of just him like clearly not happy about it, but willing to take orders. Like I like that with like giving a little face to the faceless.
Yeah, that was a nice move too. We had a good conversation with Darthsidious. I highlighted a couple sentences here. My lord, are you Sith? Good, he grinned, yellow teeth flashing in the shadow of his hood. Yes, child, I am not the Chancellor you once knew. I am more. I am Darthsidious, heir to millennia of grand design. So there you go, Adam. A millennia of grand design, dedicated to achieving vengeance for the Sith. The Republic I served is dead. That was a fun interaction, right? We don't get the curtain pulled back too many times.
You think about it, no, he's usually only talking to his apprentices, right? Or his the other like Sith. So hearing yellow teeth. Yeah. I don't know if I want to open this can of worms, but why not? Why not open a long-standing debate about? So we know he ends up. Well, yeah, but so he has fine teeth as Chancellor Palpatine. Throughout it, right? I don't remember seeing any yellow teeth there. So
I see where this is going.
Yeah. So when he gets the Sith lightning directed back to him, the argument that's never been settled is whether his all wrinkly self is caused by the Sith lightning, or if that's just revealing his true form after flesh being corrupted by the dark side. If it's the former, that also means that Sith lightning yellows your teeth.
Also terrible for your dental plan.
Yeah, which would mean that Luke Skywalker has put in veneers. But anyway, continue.
Can I answer this one? There's two answers. The non-canon answer, I believe, came from the novelization of Revenge of the Sith, and in that one, all the deflecting the lightning back at him was that it forced him to lose his disguise. And
that's
showed
what
his
I
true
always
self.
Figured. Yeah.
Which could be the case, because we do know that he takes other forms in what's it called? Rebels. He stops. He looks like his normal self presents his normal self to Ezra, and I think it's the last episode.
Right.
That's right.
And
is that in the vision or?
It's kind of a vision. It's a Force temple that he put on the Chimera. I don't know. Actually, that's probably still there.
Right.
Now that it was destroyed. Ezra destroyed it. Any hoozle. So that's the non-canon reason, and then the canon.
Yep.
I think they're trying to suggest that the Force Lightning did that to him because that's how Rey killed him. Like she essentially did the same thing that Mace was doing, but with twice the power.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like you can have both of those excuses, right? Or both those explanations. Like I always like that.
Yeah.
It's the idea of like, it just like he's just been having this. It killed the illusion of it.
Yeah.
But I guess the question is then like, why couldn't he do it again? Right? Like, why couldn't he come back to it? Which I guess we never really.
Also, if that.
Go ahead, Grant.
No, if that level of mastery to use lightning sort of causes. Imagine he had to use it in the first place, and therefore, when using lightning a previous time, he must have his body must have been ravaged. And we know the dark side ravages your body over time. It's just stated
exactly.
Every ancillary book about the Sith, and so you have to imagine that if he knows lightning, he must have used it before, and therefore I believe it's true self, and he's basically been using a disguise the entire time until he has to wield the dark side again to that level or tier, that certain skill level.
And I guess my argument might be like, now I'm trying to like retcon this because, hey, welcome to being a Star Wars fan. So part of what I'm thinking about is like, so he gets hit with the Force lightning. It ruins the illusion. He's weakened, right? Which I think is, well, no, because then he fights Yoda after that. I don't know, man. Hey, Star Wars doesn't make any sense. I don't think I'm a fan anymore. No, but part of what I was trying to argue is that like he doesn't have his strength, so he can't put the illusion back up. So he uses that as a feint when he talks to the Senate, right? To be like, look at what they did to me. And then he's like, this is great. Sure. I never have to put this illusion up again because everyone's just going to look at me sympathetically. Yep. And so like that's part of the reason why. He's like, I don't have to waste any of my dark power side on like putting the illusion up because I'm using it to my advantage.
Yeah, because he won't be full force combat.
Yeah.
He has to waste any amount of percent.
Exactly. There we go.
He can't. Yeah, he can't.
And then he can just like fully be immersed in the dark side all the time. Because doesn't he always look a little strung out? He's just like got that beady look in his eyes. It's just like he just drank 2 Red Bulls or something. Like,
looking for another hit. Yeah. Let's get a little bump of that dark
and
side.
he could just do that, and it continues to ravage his body. But I think that's his comfortable space. I think he's on that. You know what I mean? I don't think that's part of it. He's just
tough luck.
Yeah. It's tough luck. It's it's not flattering, but I also think his vanity would make it so that like he wants to be his like real self.
Yeah.
Like, he's like, if I'm going to be a Sith, that like, I'm going to look like a Sith.
Yeah. As a person who, like, as you could, if anyone's watching the YouTube, hates to get his hair cut and really hates to shave or take care of his facial hair, I get it. I get like every like several months, I'm like, all right, I guess I got to do it. So like if someone could just be like, oh no, I got hit with lightning and now I never have to cut my hair or shave.
Then you'd be great. I mean,
I'd be like,
I love a hood for you. I think just maybe a hood and then don't worry about anything else. And there you go. Yeah. Yes. Maybe some yellow contact lenses, whatever.
Yeah. I love strung out Palpatine.
Sure.
Just that.
Sure. Carly would be great at that. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Just lurid stare at the viewport, just at the stars. Like, what is wrong with that guy?
That sounds like a great time to me. I don't know what you're talking
about.
All right. Well, with that, do we have any other brilliant insights? I was thinking about running through pillars, but this is kind of long, and it might not be necessary. But you never know. The pillars are always there now if we need to do a pillar check. This was just
if we ever have a short episode,
right, which will never happen. That was a blast. I think we're going to move on to the comics next week, which is going to be great to get back into them. I'm just excited to start catching up on all of the stuff that's come out.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm very excited for the High Republic, the Phase 3 of the High Republic, which is right around the corner. I literally can't
so
wait
we can do
to
this.
read the next novel.
I know. It's coming out the 14th, right? It's the Eye of Darkness. I'm very, very excited to get into... It's so weird to talk about because like the first, it's like 200 years in the past, but then the second series or versions were like even further back in time. I'm very excited to get post fall of the
Avar Chris and Elzar Mann,
Starlight,
and Vernestra Rowe, and like all
of
our heroes there. Buryaga Agaburi, hopefully.
Yeah. Right. Like I need my answer, and the answer better be he's alive and happy.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
Cinder the Charhound or Spark or something.
Oh right. Yeah. No, I think Cinder is
Bell
right.
Zettifar.
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. We'll definitely have to get caught back on
Yoda too.
Lots of Yoda. Yeah. The comics have started up. The Phase 3 comics have started up. Yeah. We'll get to those. Yep.
They're out there.
So we can talk about this Porter Angle. So we can So we can talk about this on air if we want. So we got that novel coming out the 14th next month. Obviously we're not going to cover it right away because we want to give people a chance to read it, so we'll give it at least a week. We still do have we do have the High Republic Tales of Light and Life. This is the anthology, which does cover all 3 eras. So we might want to cover that before. Not saying for next week because let's not do books back to back, but we want to keep that maybe the week after. Might be worth going through that.
I mean, we also have the Return of the Jedi from a certain point of view that I'm working with.
And we also have Crimson Climb by E.K. Johnston, which is the Kira novel, adult novel.
It's raining novels.
So we got
those.
Be
a book club.
I know it's raining novels. I know we'll get caught up fast though because there's a break after that.
Sure, there is
till next year.
Yeah,
until next year. Till I think the next one is another High Republic, and at the end of January. Right. So we got time, but we got a lot of comics to get caught up on. So we had texted back and forth. Probably it would be good to cover Hidden Empire.
I can't wait for that. That'll be fun.
Next week. Yeah. So we got Hidden Empire, and then we got other stuff we could cover. We got so much. Do we just want to do Hidden Empire?
Let's do 2 or 3 if we can.
Do a High Republic primer or something.
Let's push the High Republic until we start covering the books and things. I think
Shadow of Starlight. Did you guys read that? That's pretty interesting. It's very similar to sort of Rise of the Red Blade in that you sort of see the cover, the Jedi Order after the tragedy and sort of what sort of protocols they enact.
Yeah, that's the first
accelerate this sort of knighting and stuff like that.
That would be fun.
Yeah. That's the first comic, right? The Yoda centric comic. Yeah. So there you go. So I know we're doing the Marvel Unlimited release. So here's a pitch. We could cover Hidden Empire 1 through 5. We could finish the Han Solo and Chewbacca miniseries 6 through 10, and do the Sonastaris
good
miniseries.
Yeah, do that
1 through 5. So I think that's enough. I think we can cover those 3 pretty quickly. That'll take a good chunk off. And then next time we do comics, we just want to wrap up, kind of do like a fast-paced round of just like all the other Hidden Empire stuff from Dr. Aphra, Star Wars, Bounty Hunters, Darthvader. Just do those.
We'll do a catch-all where we'll just talk about the broad stuff.
Get us caught up with those.
Arcs, and then we'll just kind of.
That sounds good.
Ideas. Yeah.
That sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, and then that gets us pretty close to the Dark Droid stuff, which we can take a pause, wait for the Dark Droid stuff.
Which we'll cover.
And we just
all right.
We'll actually cover one comic each episode.
Yeah, it's awesome. So we'll just for our listeners, you and I will all text. But for listeners, we're gonna do the Hidden Empire miniseries, the Sonastaris miniseries, and finish up the Han Solo and Chewbacca, which is issues 6 through 10 miniseries.
Yeah. Sounds good. I'm excited. We did just get news this week that the Bounty Hunter series has come to an end. I know, and it's going to be replaced by a Jango Fett series, which is kind of exciting.
Oh, that sounds awful. I don't want that at all.
I know. We hardly knew you, Bounty Hunters, but it'll be fun to sort of get an ending to that arc.
Mostly.
That hopefully some stuff will pop off. They've been building for a long time. The fate of the heiress of the Unbroken Clan and the Whispering Wood or something.
And Valance. I think they might actually be trying to
kill Valance.
We'll talk about it when we read that. I think they might be trying to redo his old EU ending, in which case I'm like, totally all worth it. If they actually do what they're going to do, I'm like, yep, do it. Great. Good ending. Love it.
Awesome. Sweet, man. Well, I think that was another fabulous podcast. Why don't we put this one in the books? I did want to just leave you with some parting words. Don't fall for the cloying promises of the dark side. We'll talk to you next week on
Cantina Chronicles.